Alright, so in the previous video we talked about layers, all the layers and how they combine and how they are used at a sort of a superficial level. We didn't go into the details of what every parameter does, but today we're going to talk about textures and how to add them onto your first layer. So we're going to use only layer A. I'm going to actually grab this material that we created, which is this one, and I'm going to add it to this plane. Okay, now this plane is not a standard plane. This is just a plane that I've imported, and it is nanite enabled. Okay, that's important if you want to use displacement. So we've got the layer A on top from the surface forge, and now we want to scroll down over to where we have our textures. We have an albedo, a normal, and an ORD. ORD standing for occlusion, roughness, and displacement. Okay, and what that means, if we open this texture, I will bring it up to you now. What this means is that this texture has a bunch of texture sets into one texture. So if you look, the red channel contains the occlusion, the green channel contains the roughness, and the blue channel contains the displacement information. Okay, all of this is going to help you to achieve a believable result for your surfaces. Okay, but because there's 3 channels, we're actually using an efficient method of compressing all of these into one texture instead of having 3 different textures. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Surface Forge folder. I'm going to go into textures, and I'm going to look at these cobblestones here, right? And sometimes you might get an error because of virtual texture, where you have a texture that's virtual texture, another copy of it which is not, the normal the same, but then you might have the ORD, which they're both virtual textures. This can bug out. You can always right click and convert VT to regular texture and then press OK, and that will do it in a matter of seconds. But you can also convert regular textures into virtual textures this way as well. Now bear in mind that you cannot use a virtual texture in a non-virtual texture slot or vice versa. Now with that done, let's replace material A. So I'm going to put the cobblestone base color, I'm going to put the normal, and then I'm going to put the ORD. Okay, now nothing's really happened because right now displacement is not enabled, so I'm going to enable that displacement value, and I'm also going to make sure that tessellation is enabled. And as you can see, the surface is indeed tessellated and displaced. I can increase that, and we can see that geometry there as well. Now, what else can we do in material A? So I'm going to start from the top. The first thing we've got weight parameter inputs, and obviously if you hover over any of these you will have descriptions, but what basically this does, it allows us to squeeze the displacement in various ways. It allows you to effectively create very interesting shapes with your displacement. This is something that is so fundamental to this entire process. It allows so much R direction. Like, look at that, right? How much R direction it allows in your displacement. And by the way, when you start playing with these weights, if you have multiple layers enabled, then their height blending starts to behave differently as well. And we can also use the weight remap here to kind of set the ceiling, right, or the floor of this. Another thing that you could do if you enable water puddles, you'll notice that the water puddles are now forming right in these crevices, right? Because it's a height blend effect. You can obviously always like decrease that and kill off the water, so to speak, but you can also go to your weight parameters here, right? And you can sink them underwater, right, or raise it back up again. There is a bug once you reach 0, obviously, but you don't want to reach that value anyway. So you can kind of see just what sort of effect you can get just by doing this height remap. It's magical, really. I mean, honestly, thank you, Damian Ramirez, for this tool. Okay, now I'm going to disable water puddles because we're not talking about water puddles, we're talking about our material A. The next thing, we have POM. Now, if you enable POM, this will automatically allow POM to function with displacement at the same time, but this is coming at a heavy cost, okay? So you do want to disable tessellation, or if you can't do that or don't want to do that, right, you can also disable nanite, but maybe you want the mesh to be nanite because you want the mesh to be performant. See, this is in the green right now, okay? Then you can always go in here and just say POM only displacement. which means that displacement is going to be fully disabled and only the parallax occlusion mapping will work. We can go over here to tessellation as well and disable that if you want. You can see the effect is still the same. That's because parallax occlusion mapping is also driven by this weight parameter here, okay? And well, it sort of is and isn't, so to speak. Like you can see right now, I'm making these changes. Not much is happening. It's a bit of an odd one. If you disable that, switch this over to normal, enable POM, you know, it's not that, you know, it's not really that affected by the weights themselves. But what parallax occlusion mapping does do, because it is using displacement value to effectively even work with things like water puddles, right? And I'll show you what I mean by this. See that? How we can sort of like bring that water down, and it works perfectly with POM as well. What you do have is once you enable parallax occlusion mapping, you have a parallax occlusion mapping control point, and you have a height ratio. And I wouldn't, you know, I would advise going to like 0.05, for example. You got steps here as well, which by the way, the more steps, the more expensive this can get. You can actually see the complexity of this if you do a complexity debug for layer A, and it will show you just how expensive this is right now. And it's quite expensive, but I could turn this on to like 16 or maybe even like 8, and then do the minimum steps to like a 4 or something like that. So now it's not expensive at all, and I can disable that POM thing, right? But now you get a bit more noise when you move around with the camera. So the more steps you have, the better the effect will look and more stable. Okay, but I don't want to delve too much into parallax occlusion mapping just now. I just want to continue on with these. We have parallax occlusion map shadows. If you disable those, it will improve performance, but there's no more shadows for parallax. And these shadows they will respond to lighting, to the directional light changing. So that's very important for you to know, because it also sells the effect a lot more. We could then disable parallax occlusion mapping entirely. And now what we have in here is we've got, if we want to set the surface as metallic, if that's something that we want to do, again, nobody's forcing you to do that. But if you want, if this is a metal, you can click that button and you can say, right, yes, it is metallic. Then we get a metallic option down here, override metallic, and we can make this to 1. Now it's a full metallic surface, or you can put that to 0. You can also use a specific sort of like map. And what I mean by this is, like right now, it's saying in here that you can use a displacement map specifically just for this, right? If you click that button, you will be able to drop a displacement map in here, okay? You can also go up into the global switches and say use ORM for metallic. And if that's enabled, which it is right now, then the system is expecting that you load up in here a ORM texture instead of an ORD. Now, this is actually a caveat I should probably fix whenever switching these on. We should just actually see ORM here rather than ORD. But the point is that you can now add an ORM texture, which stands for occlusion, roughness, or metallic, right? A preset texture that stands for that. But if we disable this option from here, then the system will not expect that. It will just simply allow you to put in here a full metallic texture and in here a displacement, because we've enabled metallic. So if we disable metallic, right, it's now going to not assume that this is a metallic surface, so it doesn't want it, right? This displacement, by the way, here, you just need the proper texture for it, because right now I'm just using the A texture for displacement, which is causing the cobblestone not to properly displace, right? But if I say, right, I don't want to use a displacement map, then it will automatically revert to the ORD. And I can also use the metallic, right? Say it's metallic, and then I can put in here the metallic texture. And right now it seems I have an error in the material here. This is something to do with the samplers. This is something I'm going to look at after the video and just resolve and make sure that the Surface Forge is updated to have that fix. There are still issues that I can encounter that need fixing, but this is not a big one. It's actually something very minor anyway to resolve. Now, in terms of the next sort of bits, you can also enable subsurface scattering. We're not going to do that. We just, you know, it's just if you want to add, like if you actually enable it, you can just set up a SSS color. So maybe you want to do like a Like you want this to be like a blue, emanate a blue color, but it won't do that unless you actually go in here and change the shading model to subsurface. And hopefully, yeah, there you go. Now you can see this entire system is now emanating this faint greenish color because it's emanating at the subsurface color, okay? But we're not going to use that for now. You can then also use a triplanar. So we can enable triplanar for this layer, which means that now wherever the texture goes, it will properly change its, you can see here how it transitions to a next projection. And you can see here on this, how well it functions from left to right. And if we disable world align textures, you can see that the stones kind of go around in circles and whatnot, and they might not properly sort of like blend with each surface. But enabling world align textures allow for a more seamless transition. Now here's the thing, we also have in here let me just take a look. Actually, all I wanted to do, right, I wanted to look at local projection. Yes, there we go. So if you enable that, then your entire setup is now going to use a local projection instead of just world align triplanar, which means that if you rotate this mesh, it will keep triplanar, but it will be in local space. If you disable local projection and you rotate this, you'll notice how the texture kind of stays in place. I hope that's visible. The texture stays in place, but the mesh rotates. And this is odd if you have moving objects with triplanar on, right? That's where that's useful. You can obviously enable rotation. The reason why this is not enabled by default is because you want to not have it enabled by default so you can save on performance, but you can always rotate, enable that and be able to rotate the triplanar. So for example here, right? Or maybe this one, see that? You can rotate it. You've also got a world align texture projection blend hardness. So right now it's set to 60, but you could set this to like 5 or something like that, right? Which just allows the projection changes on the edges to kind of move a bit more seamless between each other. I usually just keep it at around 60 for that, right? It works a lot better. Then we have tiling. So right now it's set to 1. You could do 2, 3, 0.5, right? This is down to what your preference is. And then we have a color tint. So you can change the color tint of this texture. But you've also got a color adjustment, and hopefully I'll be able to get to that, right? Color adjustment. You can do saturation. Maybe you want a more saturated look, or maybe a desaturated look, or maybe an inverted look, right? That's what that does. You can also do a brightness, like you can increase the brightness or decrease the brightness, maybe go to 0 or something like that. And you can also do contrast, which is allowing you to actually use, like, it's more of a gamma rather than contrast, but bear in mind, it does the job, okay? And that is the rundown of what you can do at the Material A layer. If you start playing around with material blending, in here, if you enable 2-in-1 material blending, then you get a bunch more options for Material A, which is only to do with how layers are working with each other. You can also use fake AO channel, which we touched upon in a previous video. But if you do that, then you're going to get a new setup in here, AO amount. Let me show you. If I put this to 10, 15, 25, even 100. Well, 100 is a bit too much, but let's do 25. You can see how fake AO is being used to create more depth for the cobblestone. If you do not have an ORD texture, like an occlusion texture, which comes from ambient occlusion, then you will not be able to use this. It will not do anything, okay? But this is the other way. So let me show you minus 25. You can see that we've just kind of created this whitish look all around, which is an interesting effect. But yeah, very important to know that you can also go the other way around, not just in the positive direction. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. We're going to be moving on to the second chapter of all the videos now, to more advanced features. So far, we just kind of covered the basics of the Surface Forge.